Ever notice how sometimes you got to kind of think backward to move forward?
Huh, what do you mean?
Like, say you lost your keys, right? You retrace your steps. Think where you asked song.
Ah, yeah, yeah. Or when you double check math, you kind of work it backward to make sure the forward part makes sense.
Exactly. That's reverse thinking. And guess what? Researchers are teaching AI to do it too.
Seriously.
No kidding. We're diving into this paper. Reverse thinking makes LLMs stronger reasoners.
Okay, LLMs, those big language models like what, Chat GPT and all that.
Yep. It's about how researchers from UNZ, Chapel Hill, and Google are basically supercharging them with this reverse thinking.
Hmm, interesting. So how does that even work?
The wild part is they found that teaching AI to think backward actually makes it better at the forward thinking.
Wait, so it's like practice in reverse makes you better going forward.
That's the gist. Kind of blew my mind too when I first read it. But luckily, our expert's here to break it down.
Well, it is kind of counterintuitive, but think of it like learning a dance move, right? Sometimes you practice the steps backward and it helps you nail the forward flow.
Yeah, okay, I can kind of see that. But how they actually do it? Like, teach a computer to think backward?
They've got this framework called REVTHINK, short for reverse enhanced thinking. It's a two-step process with a teacher LLM and then a student LLM.
Hold up, teacher and student. Sounds like we got an AI classroom now.
Kinda, yeah. Think of the teacher LLM as like this super smart tutor. It builds a special data set for the student LLM to learn from.
All right, so what's so special about this data set?
It's not just questions and answers, right? The teacher LLM, it includes this forward reasoning, showing the student how to get to the answer step by step.
Oh, so like showing your work in math class, but for AI.
Exactly.
Gotcha. So the teacher shows the student how to think it through, but where does the reverse thinking come in?
Here's the cool part. The teacher also generates these what they call backward questions that are related to the original problem.
Okay, give me an example. I'm a visual learner.
Sure. Let's say the original question is, James writes a 3-page letter to 2 different friends twice a week. How many pages does he write a year?
Okay, simple enough math problem.
Right. And the forward reasoning would lay out all the steps to get to the answer, which is, let me see, 624 pages.
Okay, makes sense. So what would a backward question look like for this?
The teacher LLM might come up with something like, James writes a letter to 2 different friends twice a week, and he writes 624 pages a year. How many pages long is the letter he writes to each friend?
Oh, wow. So it's like working backward from the total pages to figure out each letter's length, like reverse engineering the problem.
You got it. And then the teacher LLM provides the step-by-step backward reasoning to solve that new question.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could be helpful. So the teacher's got this awesome data set. What about the student? What's its role in all this?
The student gets to learn from all of this, from this multifaceted data the teacher put together.
So the student's getting like a master class in reverse thinking.
Yeah, and during training, it learns to do 3 things. Generate the correct forward reasoning, make a backward question from the original, and generate the backward reasoning to answer that new question.
But if it's learning to think forward and backward, does it use both when it's tested?
Here's the kicker. At test time, it only uses forward reasoning.
So all that backward practice is just like ingrained in the system now.
You got it. Like, it's become part of its intuition, helping it approach problems with a deeper understanding. And the results are pretty remarkable.
Okay, spill it. Did this reverse thinking thing actually work?
Oh, yeah, it did. They tested REVTHINK on 12 different data sets, all sorts of reasoning challenges, common sense, math problems, logic puzzles, you name it.
Yeah.
And it consistently beat out the other methods they compared it to. On one data set, Strategy QA, it's all about strategic thinking. REVTHINK hits 70% accuracy.
70%. That's impressive. What were the other methods scoring?
The best one only got to a little over 63%, so REVTHINK had a clear edge.
So it's not just a small improvement. It's a pretty big leap.
It is. And it gets even more interesting when you think about what it means beyond just getting the right answer. This seems to help them develop a much deeper understanding.
So not just memorizing facts or patterns, but like reasoning more like us.
Exactly. And that's got some pretty exciting implications for the future of LLMs. We might be talking AI that not only solves problems, but understands the why behind it.
Wow, okay, color me intrigued. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, how about that learning faster thing? You mentioned it was sample efficient earlier. What does that even mean?
That's one of the cool things here. Sample efficient basically means it learns faster than other models, needing less data for better results.
So it's kind of like cutting through the noise and getting to the core faster.
Precisely. And that efficiency, it's going to be super important as these LLMs get even bigger and more complex.
Yeah, totally. So it's more accurate, deeper reasoning, and more efficient.
You got it.
This is amazing. But what does it all actually mean? How could we use this in the real world?
Now that's the question, isn't it? The possibilities are pretty wild. Like, imagine LLMs helping scientists test hypotheses, but in reverse.
Hold up, I got to wrap my head around that. What would that even look like?
Let's say a scientist is developing a new drug. An LLM trained with REVTHINK could help him analyze potential side effects or interactions before they even start trials.
So it's like having an AI partner that can predict problems, help you avoid those dead ends in research.
Exactly.
That could be huge for scientific discovery.
Yeah.
What about, like, writing? What if you had an AI that could spot plot holes in your story before you even finished it?
Right. It's like having an AI editor who gets not just grammar, but the logic of your story.
This is incredible. So many different fields this could apply to. But let's stick with writing for a sec. How would it actually find those plot holes?
Remember how REVTHINK makes him generate those backward questions? For writing, those could be things like, if this character does this at the end, what needs to happen earlier to make it believable?
Oh, it's like constantly checking the logic of the story, making sure it all adds up.
Yeah, precisely.
This is amazing. It's like REVTHINK could make them way more valuable as partners, not just tools.
Yeah, and think about everyday stuff like planning a trip. An LLM with REVTHINK could figure out the best routes, considering traffic, delays, even what you like.
Okay, that's something I could actually use. No more getting logged in a new city.
It'd be like an AI travel agent who knows you better than you know yourself.
Seriously, this is mind-blowing. So making it think backward actually makes it better at thinking forward. How is that even possible?
It's almost like they're seeing the big picture in a way they couldn't before.
So by understanding how to break a problem down, they understand how to build a solution better.
You got it. It opens up a whole world of possibilities. But before we get too carried away, got to consider the limitations too, you know?
Okay, yeah, the caveats. What are we being cautious about here?
Well, even with this REVTHINK thing, we got to remember LLMs are still machines. They learn from the data they're given, and that data can have biases.
Right, so even if REVTHINK itself doesn't add bias, the data it learns from might already have it.
Exactly. We got to be aware of that and keep researching how to make that data less biased, and the algorithms too.
It's a good reminder to approach this whole AI thing carefully. No. Make sure we're thinking about the ethics along the way.
For sure. Responsible AI is huge, especially as it gets more powerful and woven into our lives.
Well said. This has been super insightful so far. I can already see how big of a deal REVTHINK could be. But before we jump ahead too much, let's appreciate this whole inverting a problem thing.
Yeah, it is fascinating, isn't it? And it goes way beyond AI, too.
It makes me think about how I do my work even. Maybe I need to think in reverse more often.
I think we could all benefit from a bit of that, honestly. It's powerful for problem solving, decisions, even creativity.
It's like you're saying we've got to challenge how we think, not just what we're thinking about.
Exactly.
Whoa, this is giving me a lot to chew on, feeling like I'm seeing things in a whole new light.
That's the fun part, right? Exploration and discovery.
Totally. But for now, I think we need to take a quick pause, back it a bit, to go even deeper into this reverse thinking thing, what it means for AI and for us.
It really is amazing how just kind of shifting how you look at things can unlock so much.
I know, right? It's like we've been looking at these LLMs with blinders on or something, and now REVTHINK is showing us there's this whole other side.
It makes you wonder what else we're missing, you know? Just because we're not thinking about things the right way.
It's like a reminder that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs aren't about inventing something totally new, but just seeing what's already there in a new light.
Exactly. So before the break, we were talking about how reverse thinking could help make these LLMs more transparent.
Yeah, making it more explainable, which I think is super important because, let's face it, AI can be a bit of a black box sometimes.
It's true, and as they become more and more a part of our lives, we really got to understand how they work, how they get to their conclusions. It's a trust thing.
Exactly. If we're going to rely on them for important stuff, we got to be able to look under the hood and see what's going on.
And that's where this reverse thinking thing comes in. It's like you can trace the LLM's thought process backward, kind of like a detective retracing the steps of a crime, you know?
So it's not just about getting the right answer. It's about understanding the why behind it.
Exactly. And that understanding, it helps us spot potential biases or errors in their logic. That's huge for building trust and making sure AI is being developed responsibly.
That actually ties into something we talked about earlier, how those LLMs can pick up biases from the data they're trained on,
Yeah.
even with something like REVTHINK. We got to be careful about that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Data bias is a big deal, and we can't just sweep it under the rug. It's not enough to just make the LLMs better technically. We got to make sure they're learning from data that reflects the real world with all its complexity and diversity.
Because you could have the best construction crew in the world, the most advanced tools, but if the foundation of the house is messed up, the whole thing is going to be shaky.
Love the analogy. We got to make sure the foundation of these LLMs is solid, unbiased, so we can build on it with confidence.
One thing that I think is really cool about this whole thing is what it tells us about the relationship between human intelligence and AI.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see those parallels, isn't it?
On one hand, we're seeing that we can teach these AI systems to use some of the same cognitive tools that are fundamental to human thought. Like it's almost like we're finding this common language between our brains and these artificial systems.
We are, but on the other hand, it also kind of highlights how fundamentally different they are from us. The way they learn, the way they reason, it's often really hard for us to grasp.
It's like we're trying to communicate with a completely different species,
Mm.
you know? We can observe them, learn how to interact with them, but maybe we'll never fully understand what's going on inside,
That's a good point.
which is why it's so important to keep researching, keep trying to understand both what they can do, AD, what their limitations are, how they work, how they learn, and how we can use them safely and ethically.
Couldn't agree more.
But, let's not get lost in the weeds here because the potential of this stuff, it's just mind-blowing. We're talking about AI that can not only process information, but actually understand it, reason about it in ways that we used to think were only possible for humans.
I know, it's crazy to think about.
I mean, think about it. Personalized education that actually adapts to how each student learns best. AI doctors that can diagnose diseases with incredible accuracy.
Right. Or even AI that helps us be more creative, writing
Yeah.
novels, composing music. The sky's the limit, really.
Yeah, it really feels like anything is possible. But, and I know I keep saying this, but it's important, right? We got to be responsible with this power. Think about the potential impact on jobs, on privacy, on how we even understand what it means to be human.
You're absolutely right. We can't just charge ahead blindly. We need to have these tough conversations, think through the consequences.
It's not just about the technology, it's about the values that guide how we develop and use it. We got to make sure AI is serving humanity, not the other way around.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that actually brings us back to that idea of reverse thinking. It's not just a cool trick for making AI better. It's a whole way of thinking that can help us navigate these massive challenges we're facing.
Yeah, it's about questioning assumptions, shaking things up, seeing things from different angles. It's about thinking backward to move forward in a smarter, more conscious way.
And it's something we can all practice no matter who we are or what we do. We can all benefit from taking a step back, asking, what if? What if we try a different approach? What if we thought about the unintended consequences?
It's about being proactive, not reactive. Thinking ahead, finding solutions before problems even pop up.
It's about thinking long term, not just what works right now, but what's going to create a better future.
So how do we get more people thinking this way? It seems like it's crucial, especially with the world getting more and more complex all the time.
I think education is key. We
Oh.
got to teach kids from a young age to think critically, to question things, to see different sides of an issue. We need to encourage curiosity and exploration.
Man, imagine a world where every kid is taught to be a reverse thinker. The possibilities are endless.
They really are. And it's not just about kids either. Us grown-ups can use a little reverse thinking too. We can all challenge ourselves to step outside our comfort zones and try new ways of thinking.
Maybe we need to start offering reverse thinking 101 classes,
Ugh, I'd sign up. We could all use a refresher on how to think differently.
Okay, maybe I'm getting a little carried away here. But you got to admit, this is pretty exciting stuff. We're talking about changing the way we think, how we approach the world.
No, you're right. It's a huge shift, potentially. Could change everything, not just AI, but society as a whole.
I think you're right. But let's not forget, we're still at the beginning here. There's so much more to learn, so much we don't know about this whole reverse thinking thing.
And that's what makes it so exciting, right? It's a journey, and we're just taking the first steps.
Love that.
Okay.
Okay, I think it's time to dive into some of the specifics of this research. Tell me, how did REVTHINK actually stack up against those other methods for improving LLMs?
Happy to. Let's take a closer look at those experiments, see how REVTHINK measures up.
Yes, because sometimes those nitty-gritty details, they can really help you appreciate the big picture. Okay, so we've had the big picture, the why. Let's get into the nitty-gritty, the results. How'd REVTHINK do, like head-to-head against the other methods?
Well, remember that strategy QA dataset? The one testing how strategic these LLMs can be?
Yeah. The one where REVTHINK got that 70% accuracy, right?
Exactly. Well, the next best method, it only hit a bit over 63%.
So it wasn't even close. But was that like a fluke? Or did REVTHINK do that well consistently?
They ran it on 12 datasets, and REVTHINK consistently beat the competition. We're talking common sense reasoning, tough math problems, logic puzzles, all sorts of stuff.
So reverse thinking, it's not just some trick. Seems like a real breakthrough.
It does, yeah. And remember that sample efficient thing? Needing less data to get those results.
Yeah, like it's learning smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And that's going to be huge EE as these models keep getting bigger and more complex. Think of the data, the computing power we could save.
It's like we're unlocking something within these AI systems, giving this ability to think backward, and suddenly they've got a new tool to understand the world, solve problems.
And it's not just about solving them, but understanding the why, right? Getting to a deeper level.
That's what's so cool about this research. It's not making AI faster, it's making it more intelligent, more like us in how it reasons.
And that opens up some wild questions. If we can teach them to think like us, what else is possible?
Things like, I don't know, creativity, intuition, even empathy, maybe. Could REVTHINK get us there?
It's possible, but gotta approach it carefully, right? This is powerful stuff. Gotta make sure it's aligned with our values, our goals.
Yeah. Building a future where AI helps us, not replaces us.
Exactly. And I think reverse thinking can help us with that too, Challenge our assumptions, look at things from different sides. That's how we approach this whole AI thing responsibly.
I gotta say, this whole deep dive has been way more than I expected. I thought we'd just be talking tech tweaks, but we're talking about, like, the nature of intelligence itself, the role of tech, even the future of humanity.
It is wild, right? How one research paper can lead to such big questions. That's what I love about exploring this stuff, the cutting edge. It pushes the boundaries of what we know, how we understand the world.
And who knows what's next?
That's the fun part. It's a never-ending journey, and we're just getting started.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. From the details of REVTHINK to the big questions about AI, we've covered a lot.
We have.
But before we go, I want to leave you with this. The fact that we can teach AI to think in reverse, that's incredible. Shows you the power of human ingenuity.
It does.
But it also reminds us that we got to use that power wisely, ethically.
Yeah.
As AI gets more sophisticated, it's on us to make sure it's used to make the world better for everyone. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep thinking in reverse.